Welcome to another ENACAC video series. Today we are here with two of our co-chairs for the Government Relations Committee, and they're going to talk a little bit about what they do for government relations. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves. I'll introduce myself, and then we'll get this conversation rolling. So who would like to go first?
I can go ahead. Yeah.
It's so nice. They don't even want to go first. So,
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Brandon, get us going.
We're a great committee over at Government Relations. We want to be courteous to one another. My name is Brandon Curry. I am the co-chair, obviously, alongside Karini, and I am the assistant director of recruitment and outreach at IU Fort Wayne. I've been part of the Government Relations Committee for a little over 2 years now, and been co-chair for about 6 months or so now.
And hi, I'm Karini Maria Contreras Nunez, but you can please feel free to call me Karini. I am a senior assistant director at the Office of Admissions at Purdue University, and I have been part of this committee, I'm going to say, for about 2 years, perhaps a little bit more. And I have been a co-chair for, I would say, about a year now. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm Janaya Downing. I'm the president of this fine organization, the Indiana Association for College Admissions Counselors. And I'm going to play kind of like an MC role, not super important, but just going to throw some questions out there. So the first thing we're going to do, I think if someone is brand new to this profession or to this committee, this organization, they may have no idea of like what government relations and higher education and all these things combined are. So can you guys just talk a little bit about what the Government Relations Committee is?
Sure. Yeah. So when you think about our professional sphere, most of the level of awareness that a newer person would have is the responsibilities that are within their office, right? And the responsibilities that that office has to those students. But when you're looking at things from a 30,000 foot view and you're looking at the larger context and the larger landscape, you realize how important decisions that are made at a local level and at a federal level are, and impact the work that we do as professionals, and also impact our students as well as the access that we can provide for them, right? So what we really do is we look at that bigger picture. We're looking at that 30,000 foot view on a state level for Indiana, and we also contribute to the national level for NACAC as well when it comes to policy advocacy work, getting to know our legislative professionals, and really just advocating on behalf of our profession, our counselors, and our students to reach the most equitable form of legislation, or at least advocate for that.
Awesome.
I would just add that we want the members of ENACAC to know that they have a voice, and they need to be able to make that impact when it's at that local level, that state level, that national level. And GRC is one of those ways that they can do so to impact the legislation that comes out, as well as just the conversation and dialogue when it pertains to just issues with ENACAC and with government relations and legislative advocacy.
Yeah.
And I think, kind of like extending on that and looking at professionals, not just that are just starting in their career, but professionals that are progressing through their career. Sometimes they might want to make certain moves within their institution, but they might not realize the constraints that exist at a larger level, right? This is one of those ways that you can sort of, advocate for potential changes, not just at an institutional level, but at a much greater level. So sometimes people will feel like they can't do anything about these things, but you really can, and you have a voice, and you can come and join us and be part of this potential movement.
Yeah, I see that as being like one of the great reasons that you all exist, because I think sometimes it just seems too big, the idea of like legislation and higher education, and I'm just like an admissions counselor, I'm just a high school counselor. What am I going to do to combat the Indiana or like the nation? But to know that there is a organization and a committee in that organization that's willing to share information, but also help you add to the overall conversation, I think that's pretty powerful. When you think about other people around our state, and some who are out of state who are members of ENACAC, why would they want specifically to join the Government Relations Committee? And also, what type of person like thrives as a member of this committee?
Cool. I'll tackle the first part, and then you can feel free to tackle the second part, Brandon. So for clarification, the first part of the question is, why would someone want to join the committee?
Yeah, and then the second part is like, what type of person like thrives in a committee like this? Yeah.
Perfect. So I think the kind of people that are drawn to this committee are those that really want to make an impact beyond the one-on-one interactions that they have with students, right? If you're the kind of person that's drawn to more of a larger scale structural change and structural advocacy, then this might be a good committee for you. Obviously, this is kind of like the harder change to make, right? Because government is pretty large and bureaucratic, so it does function more like a steamboat. It moves very slowly. But if you're the kind of person that's really interested in making a larger change beyond that one-on-one interaction that you have with a student, or even the kind of work that you're doing within your institution, this would be a committee to consider.
Yeah, and I think that someone who does well on this committee is someone who wants to learn about how they can be a vehicle for ideas, and also wants to honestly just learn about the process of how that an idea can formulate and evolve into action, and be part of that. And there's a lot of action that happens with both the admissions counselors, school counselors, and where we work together a lot. And so there is a lot of conversations that happen there, and really just understanding the world around us and how that's impacted by our legislators on local, state, and federal government. So someone who wants to learn even more a little bit about that and what that means, because we hear about it in the news all the time. What does that mean for our profession specifically?
Yeah, I really want to piggyback off of that, because I think you just said something really important there, Brandon, is the learning piece. A lot of our committee members right now, they're not like experts, and I don't even consider myself an expert, you know. Dang. But we really do learn a lot, and we enjoy learning from each other, learning from people who have those resources. You know, and for us, it's all about learning, acquiring information, and then being able to convey the message of, you know, access and equity for our students in the best and most effective way possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll say this too, is where in the past, I think that there have been people that have been hesitant to join GRC because there's a perception from some people that you have to learn or have to know a lot before going into it. And where no, most of us going into GRC just thought it would be something that's important and interesting, but we don't necessarily bring this wealth of knowledge into the equation. A lot of it is learning by doing and having conversations both in the organization and also outside the organization with partner institutions.
That's awesome. Like that's so good to hear you guys say that, because I think that many of the things that someone is looking for by being engaged when they want to make like big changes or they want to be a part of a process, like there's some like faster wins that you can have, but much of what GRC does, it is a part of a process. You know, you learn about something, you realize how that can negatively impact our students or our counselors, and you're able to come together and speak against that. Or there's something that we really need as an organization for our students and our counselors, and you're able to speak to like why this is important on the state level, and also later on the national level. That's fun, and it is a part of a process, but when you get one of those wins, that's a lot of fun. So what are you guys working on right now? What are some things that GRC has in the, I don't know, what do you say, in the fire, so to say? Like what are you guys working on to keep us all informed and to move GRC forward?
Yeah, so I usually say in the fold, but fire, fold, it all works.
What's going on in the fold of GRC?
In the fold, you know, or like, let me bring you into the fold, yeah. So we have a lot of things going on. I'll start with AWS, and then Brandon can take it from there. So we have our advocacy webinar series, which we've just started this year, and we're super excited about it. It's also a certificate program, which high school counselors can use to earn professional development credits. A minimum of 5 professional development credits will be awarded for the certificate. It could be more if you participate in our advocacy days, which I'm sure Brandon will touch on in a second. But with our advocacy webinar series, it's a 4-part series. And we're really just kind of walking you through the advocacy work process. So we first talk about, the first series is on the Indiana legislative structure, talking about what that looks like, how a bill becomes a law, what are, legislative processes in-house, and the external and internal agents that play a role and a factor in legislation coming to fruition, right? So that's the first session. And the second session really focuses on understanding what our priorities are for advocacy work on a national level with NACAC, and then also on a state level as in ACAC. The third session mostly talks about ways to advocate, right? What are the mechanisms or the methods by which we want to communicate our legislative priorities? And then the last session really talks about understanding bills and legislation, because sometimes people feel overwhelmed with these bills and this policy work. And it's actually, it can be challenging sometimes, but we want to make it easily digestible information. So, so that you're not overwhelmed with reviewing bills and legislation as you're talking to potential legislators as well. Just making sure that our constituents and our members feel informed and feel like they can carry a conversation, right, about this stuff. And, huh?
I was saying that's so important. I think that government relations, or like the government in general, is intimidating. You don't want to go into a conversation and feel like because you haven't done it for 20, 30 years, you can't talk to someone about your issue. So I think that's really important to make sure that they're prepared for those conversations.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those conversations, they're not as data heavy as people would assume them to be, or like they're not as heavy on the technicalities. A lot of times legislators just really want to hear your perspective and your story.
Sure.
But we find that people feel more comfortable sharing that story if they can just attach it to like either one of our legislative priorities or one of the things that they've learned in our sessions, right? Like people feel more comfortable talking about that, and they feel like they can convey that message much more easily. So this series is really made for the average person out there who's like, I wish I could do more. I wish I could talk to a legislator or just advocate on behalf of my students. I don't know what I'm doing and I don't know how to get started, but we're really there to kind of guide you through that process.
Yeah, we've had tremendous success already where we're partway through the AWS series, and we've had dozens of different members and even people from outside of NECAC from either partner institutions or other ACACs from Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky get involved and ask questions about what we're doing. So really working across state lines as well. So really excited to see people just learning about how they can be impactful, both in a small scale all the way up to a large scale. Mm-hmm. And then it's a really exciting time for all of us at GRC because at the time of this recording, we've not yet went into the legislative session for the state. So the state of Indiana, not to get too far in the weeds here, has a legislative session that is only once a year from January to March. And that's when everything happens, all the magic happens, basically. And so we are going to be in the coming months here, looking at what kinds of impactful legislation that is going through and stuff that goes into votes and maybe doesn't even make it that far, but looking at what impacts us. And then after all that is done, even in the midst of it, we're planning both a state and piggybacking off of a National Advocacy Day, where we're going to have a State Advocacy Day in February, National Advocacy Day in March, and where this is going to be an opportunity virtually this year, but other years in person, to show NECAC's voice and how that we are united on different fronts, and so really excited about what this is going to look like. I mean, in recent years, Karini and Janaya, you went to the Washington D.C. even and worked with NACAC and been able to meet with people from all across the country. And so there's some just really cool things that we do with those state advocacy days and national advocacy days.
Yeah, those advocacy days are really exciting. And I know that COVID-19 has really thrown a wrench in a lot of things and has caused a lot of like
Sure.
pain and suffering overall. But being able to move into a virtual format is going to present opportunities as well for us as a cohort. I think in the past, it's been really challenging to get, for example, counselors out of the building for a local advocacy day or even a national advocacy day. But joining a Zoom call is going to make things a little bit different and much more accessible for the larger population, right? So we're really excited about some of the possibilities that could be presented here.
That's awesome. That's really, really great. And it just makes everything so much more digestible when you know that there is someone who's doing the work you're doing on the high school and college side, and they're giving you the tools you need to affect change at a greater scale. I think so many of us do small things in our individual areas, our high school campuses or our college campuses, but to know that if you want this to grow, like a program you have or something you need funded or a law that's preventing your students from being successful, you have a voice in government relations that can help you move that forward. If someone is watching this right now and they're like, okay, cool, sign me up, I want to be a part of that, what's the best way for them to get in contact with one of you or the GRC at large? They can join, they can come to a meeting, they can get connected. What's the best way to do that?
Well, I prefer smoke signals and carrier pigeons. So
Old school.
yeah,
School.
real
Okay,
old school.
like it.
No, you could just feel free to shoot either Brandon or myself an email.
Okay. Okay.
And our information is on that NIGAC website. So if you go to the committee as part of the website and government relations, then you'll find us there. But we're really easy to get a hold of and to talk to.
That's awesome. That's awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure to talk to you guys about what you do in GRC. And I'm hoping that anyone out there who's thinking about getting involved, this is a great committee to get connected with. Really, this type of work is what, for me anyway, it changes a job to a career. You get to see what's going on beyond just your campus and your location at state and national issues that really affect the students that you want to be successful. So this takes you out of just like your bubble of your institution and lets you do some big things to help a lot of students. So with that said, thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Karini. You guys are amazing. Thank you for your service. And look out for more videos coming. As we make more, we will upload more to the YouTube page. Thank you so much, and y'all have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.